Welcome to a live recording of our Reimagine podcast, and we're doing this as a Zoom webinar, recording it, video and audio, and looking forward to this discussion. Part two, Mike Kalin, CEO Covr. Thanks for organizing this, and you've got a great panel for us. Laura, do you want to set the stage for the discussion we have today?
Sure. So, it's great to be here with all of you this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. So today we have special guests, and as Paul had mentioned, it is part two. So we have Covr Financial Technologies, Bestow, and Haven. So they're here to talk about a really interesting conversation. And I won't give it away at this point, but what I will do is ask each of you to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about who you are and what you represent. So Mike, let's start with you.
Thanks. And good to see everybody again from Nassau Re. I'm Mike Kalin. I'm CEO of Covr Technologies. We are a digital life insurance platform for many types of financial institutions and affinity partners.
Albert?
Hi, everyone. Great to be able to join you today. Appreciate you having me on. My name is Melbourne O'Banion, co-founder and CEO of Bestow. I'm a repeat entrepreneur. This is my first startup in life insurance, but I've done one in title and health insurance before founding Bestow. We founded Bestow in 2017 with a mission to scale life insurance coverage to millions of unprotected families. We're based in Dallas and Austin, Texas.
Fantastic. And your own?
Hi, everybody. Good to be with you. Thank you all for joining. My name is Yaron Ben-Zvi. I am the founder and CEO of Haven Life. Haven Life is a insurance agency, and we are really focused on making it easy for people to get term life insurance coverage. And we also happen to be part of a larger company, which is MassMutual, whose policies we sell in partnership with Covr and others.
And by the way, you're on just a call. We had a great interview with a colleague of yours, Blair Baldwin at AgeUp, on our annuity show. So you're doing some really interesting things, not only on the life, but the annuity side. So, welcome. Yeah. And, okay, Mike Kalin, I was out with some friends this weekend. It was last Sunday, one of the last good weekends out on the bike ride and doing some outdoor swimming. They said, one of the guys said, Paul, you got to watch South Park. You got to watch the pandemic special. I don't know. For those of you who've watched it, I don't know. Don't watch it with your kids. So if they'd had a segment on the life insurance space on South Park, I mean, what would that have run like in your experience, Mike? What's happening here? What has changed in the business?
Well, first of all, we would have to change our model to go after the juvenile marketplace. And I'm not sure that our new automated underwriting engines know how to underwrite that class of character. But that's another opportunity, right? No, I mean, it would be, one of, satire as to why it took Americans as long as they did to close the $9 trillion, life insurance gap that we've talked about in this industry for 30 years. It took a pandemic to help people realize they need life insurance. And, what we've done is we've created this phenomenal journey together with partners like Bestow and Haven. And it took a pandemic to realize that people can get the insurance they need through the process they want. But all the evidence points to the fact that, we're now reaching customers at record levels who want to apply and buy insurance from the comfort of their own home. So I don't know how that turns into a South Park episode, but there is an episode somewhere in there.
Yeah, it is amazing. It took a pandemic to realize that people wanted digital signatures. They wanted to buy things without having strangers come to their home and take blood and other things from them. Interesting time, and it's kind of like it took this to get us back to 2010.
So I
think what's interesting is there's something in evolution called punctuated change. And I think this is a punctuated change for not only our industry, but others, where it's accelerating the digitization of the space, right? And I think no one knows how long the effect of this will persist. But I tell my team often that I think COVID in many ways is an awareness campaign for people's own mortality. And certainly there's a seismic shift within not only the industry, but I think the consumer mindset, recognizing that they need to prepare, maybe more so than they have in the past, for a tragic event. And it's taken, Mike's right, I think it's taken a pandemic to not only help consumers, but also the industry to realize that and to make the necessary changes needed to solve for today's digital consumer.
So if it took a pandemic to get us to this point today, let's look a little bit at the past. I'm sure each of you have interesting stories as founders on how you've gotten started, and kind of wanted to dig a little bit. Some of our favorite things have come from founder stories. So I guess my curiosity would be, Melbourne, if we start with you, would you mind sharing your story with us? How have you gotten to where you are today? And how has purchasing life insurance potentially impacted that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my story is both as a consumer and an entrepreneur. As a consumer, I bought a term life policy a little over 10 years ago when my wife and I had our first child, and I needed to make the responsible decision to get some coverage. The process was horrible for me. I still vividly remember having a paramed who was a really nice gentleman. He came to my office, and I laid down behind my desk to do an EKG and to get the test done. And I kept thinking to myself, like, are people walking by my office wondering, like, what is he doing in there? And then it was weeks of back and forth, getting my medical records, going back and forth with underwriters to determine what coverage and I was going to purchase and who with. And it was at that time that I started getting very intrigued with life insurance, thinking that there just has to be a better process. And at the same time, I was building a health risk management company, and we would provide wellness services to large self-insured employers to mitigate healthcare costs and utilization. So we were very, very data-driven in our approach. We gathered healthcare utilization data, prescription information. We mined that data to determine cost drivers. And so I was quite familiar with a lot of the new data sets that were going to become available just within the overall insurance industry. But the timing wasn't right for me to do something there. Fast forward to 2017, my now co-founder, Jonathan, and I had exited our previous companies, and we were ready to do something new. So what really intrigued us about life insurance as entrepreneurs is the dislocation between consumer demand for what everybody knows is a relevant financial product that millions need who don't have coverage, and the adoption rate for that product. And that was very intriguing to us, right? There's this huge disconnect between the two. And so there's this latent consumer demand coupled with an industry that in large part is yet to adopt technology in any meaningful way to modernize its product, its distribution, and just business model. So when we founded Bestow, we took a very first principles approach. We did a lot of deep build early on. We developed our own product with our partners. We developed our own platform, all of our own software we built out in-house, because in our view, we had to do that to build something exponential for the consumer and to really set ourselves up for success within the industry and expand the market rather than just try to kind of fight for existing market share. So that's at a very high level how we founded Bestow. We're 3 years in and excited about what we're doing and expanding coverage.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Yaron, how about yourself? What does your story look like?
Yeah, so yeah, it's remarkable, I think, how similar it is in some ways, Melbourne, to your story, right? So I think entrepreneurs often draw on their own experiences, right, as customers to see where the opportunities are. I started Haven Life, really started thinking about it 7 years ago, and then started the company 5 years ago now, and really came to it as a customer. My background was very much in fintech. I'd been building a robo-advisor. After several years, sold that company and basically started to look around to where were there other interesting opportunities in financial services. And my experience buying life insurance really opened my eyes, right? So my wife and I had our daughter. My dad tapped me on the shoulder, say, it's time to grow up and buy this product. And coming from the robo-advisor space, I just kind of thought I'd go online and take care of it like I do my banking, my brokerage. And at that point, the internet was already kind of well on its way transforming other parts of financial services. And what really opened my eyes was that that journey had not yet begun in the life space, at least. And, when I talked to people, there was kind of still at the time the sense of, well, life is different. It's not really going to come here. And I think that really just kind of set the red flag off in my mind. I got licensed as a life insurance agent. I learned all about the business and started to build a company, and really sort of leaned heavily into the idea that there's a lot of friction points historically in life insurance. One of them, as Mike was talking about, is now being helped along in some ways by the pandemic. The first friction point being getting customers to deal with what I call the double whammy of, talking about your mortality and your finances together. And then once you get them across that threshold, there's the barrier of, now how do I get them through this difficult process? So our hypothesis very much early on was, if we can just reduce the friction in the process, that'll really help a lot more people get the coverage they need and the protection they need. And so that's the journey we've been on now for about 5 years.
Well, and you're on. I think we must have met, when was this, 2014 or 2015? You were near Grand Central, and I remember I was incredibly impressed that you were going right at the gut of the problem, which is, how do you underwrite the stuff without data? And sounds simple to do. I mean, I can only imagine the stories you said, but you've got to be positioned just about perfectly now, especially for Mass Mutual, right? Through this.
Yeah. You always kind of look back and, you kind of count your lucky stars. I think we were really lucky in the sense that a lot of the things that we've been now thinking about for 5 years, all the themes around digitization, how do we make underwriting easier? How do we sort of connect with customers digitally in different places where they're already sort of thinking about their finances? All of those themes that we've been thinking about for years, we've just seen the market accelerate, and every year it gets faster and faster. And, whereas, as I said, 5 years ago, people were saying, why would anybody ever do this online? Now the question is just, nobody asks that question anymore, right? When you and I met, it was like, it was like we were still like a rebel band in the corner somewhere. And now I think this is core to the broader industry change that we're seeing.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. So for both of you, consumer, it starts with a consumer. You both were consumers. We just heard a terrific story. How do you keep the freshness? How do you listen to people? How are you adapting to what consumers said a few years ago to now what they're telling you today?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. So we listen to consumers in lots of ways. Obviously, one of the kind of core principles for being a tech-driven company is to kind of take your feedback from your customers. So we do NPS, we track all the time. We get feedback on all our customer tickets as they come in. And really importantly, I think also our customer service people sit next to, our technologists and our actuaries and everybody else who kind of helps run the company. And so a lot of what we look for is to make sure that the value proposition that we think is key resonates with the customers and is what we're hearing in the feedback. So for us, if you look at reviews, it's always ease of use, good customer service, and price, and probably in that order, frankly. And so the things that we really pay attention to are, number one, are we seeing that value proposition resonate with the feedback that we're getting? And even more importantly, where are we failing that value proposition? If a customer had a bad experience and, we promised them that it would be easy and for some reason, it wasn't for them, I think those are the things that we really try to hone in on.
Yeah, I'll add to that NPS is a huge driver of just information and data for not only at purchase, but also post-issue. So we come back at 60, 90 days and ask, on an ongoing basis. That's one of the unique things about being the digital players that we at Haven are, is the ability for us to interact with our policyholders on an ongoing basis. I think more uniquely compared to the industry. And I'd say that the feedback that we get that we're very proud of is just one of delight on a consistent basis, that our NPS is consistently over 80. Delight in how easy the process is, how happy our customers are. They can apply for and bind in a policy, oftentimes in less than 10 minutes. So 100% of our applicants get an immediate yes or no decision. At this point in time, we're not triaging anybody to a medical exam. So a lot of data around eligibility rates and channels and information that we analyze on an ongoing basis is really important to us. And another statistic that I'd say is key for us as far as our mission of enlarging the market is the number of first-time purchasers of life insurance. And on average, 85% of applicants that come into our site are first-time buyers of life insurance, which shows that we're going after a market that we're not taking from another carrier, but we're actually enlarging the market and expanding coverage, which is something that's really important to us.
So something I've been listening, and it's interesting because no matter what problem people are trying to solve, it's all about reduction of friction, in one way to say it, which we've heard a few times today, and it's all about being customer centric. So, Mike, we haven't heard from you as much at the moment, so I'd like to call you out for this one, but I'm kind of curious. So Covr, as one of the first companies to figure out how to get several of the major innovators or players onto one platform is game changing in itself. But curious as to what you think some of those key success drivers are, and then what are some of the benefits and challenges of doing so? You get a lot of power players together. That must be interesting at times. If you want to speak to that, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I want to add to the discussion. There's one aspect of life insurance that we haven't talked about, and it's the reason people buy it in the first place. Life insurance is one of the very few products, if not the only product in the world, that when you buy it, you never get a chance to use it. So think about that. The person who writes the check never gets a chance to use this product. I can't think of another product that has that aspect to it. So, people buy things for either need or greed. And, what I'm interested in is once we take out all the friction, which we're doing, and that's the purpose of this discussion here, how do we continue to create the need or the greed for customers to take action on a product where they personally never get the direct benefits? So I'll come back to this a little while in our discussion, but it is fundamental. If we don't address that, we'll never reach the full potential of that $9 trillion gap that we all say is out there. So to me, the single carrier journeys have started to reduce the friction and create a better user experience. The question you asked about is what's Covr's role? How do we enhance what Haven and Bestow do? We know customers want choice. They need either the appearance or the reality of getting choice. So for certain channels and certain customer segments, any single carrier will struggle to reach its full potential without being available in a choice-based model. Covr is not a whole of market intermediary. We're not looking to spreadsheet every carrier that's out there, but we know customers have a need and a want for choice. And we know that different carriers bring different product capabilities. And our job is to bring all that, including best single carrier journeys and choice, to the customers that we work with. And our research shows that, Haven and Bestow plus Covr with great access to customers is a great start on closing a lot of that coverage gap. For Covr, we offer our insurance platform through entities like banks, credit unions, personal finance apps, employee benefits brokers. They already have a trusted customer relationship. And when we can bring affordable, easy, simple, and a great customer journey, we see everybody in the value chain being happy.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And just to pull on one of the threads you mentioned, which is, insurance. Somebody described it to me once as life insurance really is a gift you're buying for somebody else. It's a gift for your kids, it's a gift for your spouse, it's a gift for somebody else. Think about it. How do you make somebody feel good about giving a gift? And let's go back in time, 40, 50 years, you'd get this big policy book, leather bound, agent walks in, drops it in somebody's house, leaves it there. Okay. Suddenly that turns into expense. Fast forward, to 10 years ago. Okay. It's a little thin thing packed as, cheaply as you possibly can. Now we want to e-deliver all this stuff. Does the fact we're now going to a digital environment create opportunities to celebrate what somebody just did in ways that, we couldn't have done before?
I think it's great. I think the digital environment, and I'll point to two specific examples, offers maybe the best opportunity to create a tangible feel to this product. It used to be that leather bound policy that you got to put in your drawer and you felt good about it because that leather bound policy was your physical proof. The two things I would point to that digital innovation are helping with is, number one, through an app or a web portal, you can touch your product every day if you wanted to, right? And there's really some interesting things that are going on with displaying your policy's value and touching it and making sure that if you needed to change a beneficiary or change an address, you can make sure that you can touch it without having to pick up a phone and remember who to call to get your policy. So that's foundational. The other thing that I really like is the integration with financial planning. There's all sorts of aggregation of your personal net worth that creates a lot of value. You look at your 401k, your personal savings, your annuities, all in one place as part of that plan. And when you look at your personal net worth, for many people, the largest asset in their net worth statement is their life insurance policy. So when you look at leaving a legacy for the next generation, you can look at pride at that $1 million asset on your personal net worth statement, all in your digital experience, wherever you're aggregating your net worth. So I do think not just the purchase journey, but the creation of a tangible asset is enabled by digital innovation.
I think a couple other interesting points that I'd add is that for consumers, when we look at the coverage gap, does the demand not exist? Or is there demand that exists and consumers aren't able to get covered the way that they would like to buy coverage? And our assumption and thesis entering into the space is there are millions of consumers who want coverage, but either don't have an existing relationship with an agent or advisor, don't know where to turn, or when they kind of go through the process, feel like they're compelled to buy probably something that they can't afford. And it's not affordability driven versus, a much higher face value than they may be able to afford on a monthly basis. And this adage that continues to persist within the industry, and Yaron, I imagine you face it as well, when you started, was that life insurance has to be sold. It cannot be bought. And what Haven and us, I think, have proven alongside, partners with Covr, and why we're really excited to partner with them, is that for a certain demographic, I think absolutely agents and advisors are going to continue to provide absolute value going forward for people who want to go through that process and purchase. But there are millions of consumers out there, and we see this every single day on our site and through our partners' platforms. They just want to be able to go online, self-serve, apply for and bind a policy just like any other product that they buy via online, and make those decisions for themselves. And whether or not that's on our site or through a partner site or through APIs like what Covr's doing with their partners, there's so many different touch points that we can interact with and sell a policy and coverage to a consumer that just hasn't existed yet within the life insurance space.
Yeah, no, I think that very much resonates with me, and I think, people understand when you ask them the kind of the basic need for protection in their life, right? They want this product when you actually get them to sit down and think about it. The problem is there's a lot of dissonance just to getting folks to that point, right? It's topics that aren't necessarily pleasant. You're talking about your mortality, you're talking about your finances, and there's perception that it's both expensive and complicated. And so, what I think the folks around this table represent is first an attempt at kind of making it less complicated, but then I think even more is like rethinking what are the right moments when we can talk to a person about those things. How can we, to Mike's point, kind of make this part of your financial planning conversation? How can we sort of with Covr in a bank relationship, put it at a point where it's really natural for you to think about your finances or your other kind of protection needs. When you combine sort of now a product that is much easier to buy, it becomes much more possible to put it in places that are going to be more natural to think about it. And so I think it's the combination of those two things become really powerful. One other thing I will just say, which I think is interesting too, is I do think you're seeing some players, ourselves included, and certainly the policies that we're partnering with Covr on are also looking at some value-added services, right? So how do we provide some benefits to the person that's actually writing the check today, so that it's not just a gift, but it's also, hey, it's going to help me with maybe a will or some other financial product. So I think all of those things start to come together to really transform not just the process, but the mindset that customers are going to be entering into this relationship with.
As I sit here and think, it's interesting. So I still have the South Park thing resonated in my head, like the potentially younger generation. Maybe it's millennial, maybe it's the favored Gen Z at this point. But know, like, and trust. So in a digital world, which we're all pretty much in at this point, how do we get people to know us, like us, and trust us? And I'm even thinking about myself, and I'm not seeing a lot of human beings as of yet, but there's one human being relationship where I think if someone was able to crack the code on this one, and it's not a clear string, but for a lot of individuals, one of the people they trust the most in the professional realm, I kid you not, is their hairdresser. Sounds wild, but in the world of know, like, and trust, it's like, who do you sit in a chair with for 45 minutes straight, have real life conversations with an individual who knows more dirt than they probably should, and you have to trust them, because God knows if you leave that chair, you're going to be looking like something else than what you planned. So it's like, I don't know where my brain was going. I think I'm going to blame Paul on this one for the South Park mentioned earlier, but it's so interesting because now that we're virtual, how have you changed what you're doing to get people to know, like, and trust you through a Zoom call or through a screen? What does that look like?
I'll take a first cut at that. Look, customers, to use your analogy, Laura, are know, like, and trust different entities than we traditionally think about. There are those that still know, like, and trust their hairdresser. There are those that know, like, and trust their banker, their credit union. And there are people who know, like, and trust the internet for advice. And if you go to the very youngest curve of the generations that you referred to, there are entirely digital relationships that are amongst the highest of know, liking, and trusting, because of your digital brand and NPS scores and your availability online and your customer journey and whatever those customers use to determine whether they know, like, and trust you just because of a digital platform. We can now serve them. And I just wanted to make one more point. If customers need help of either a chat relationship, a call center agent, or a professional agent, a face-to-face professional agent, these journeys that we're talking about are available in those channels. These are not just fully digital, no human being channels. All three companies, Covr, Bestow, and Haven, all allow customers to be.
Manhattan bagels.
Really? Where is that?
Well, this is interesting. Please hold while I mute whichever rogue phone call that is. I think we're good. Mike, as you were saying.
I'm sorry, did you lose me at some point in time?
We did. We had a little bit of audio overlap singing about Manhattan bagels, but we're back now.
Well, I don't know where I dropped off, but I'll keep it really short. I just what I said is people know, like, and trust different things, and whether it's your hairdresser, your bank, or whether it's the internet. If you're the youngest of the generations you referred to, customers are know, liking, and trusting the internet, and based on the journeys that we all are creating, trust can be created that way. But I went on to say that these journeys are not just exclusively available through a direct purchase journey only. They are available with the engagement of advice, whether it's a telephone-based agent or your local agent can also get you started on one of these great journeys. So this is not a one-size-fits-all opportunity for the industry. These technologies are enabling multiple channels to address customers the way they want to be served.
Well, and just to add in and reinforce what you said, Mike. So as you may know, I'm actually on our chat line a good chunk of the day here just to be able to talk to people. And I had one where it took a while to unravel this thing. It was probably 2 days to really figure out, Ron, you'd appreciate this, what happened. So agent goes talk to husband. Husband is somebody who wants to work with an agent. The wife is your do-it-yourselfer. She gets on, Googles all these crazy bits of information about, and this was in case of an annuity. She's asking me about annuity tables, blah, blah, blah. What? End up taking that chat, going to a phone call. I spend 30 minutes with her trying to explain to her what she should actually care about, because she's gone so far down that Wikipedia trail, she'll never find her way back. And then she goes back to husband who talks to agents. So here you've gone, web, agent to person to internet at 10 o'clock at night. Melbourne, I'm literally on my phone with the chat at 11 o'clock my night. My wife's like, who are you talking to? I'm talking to Glenda. But this is it. So it's not a one step, it's actually multi-step, multi-point. And sometimes even the client you think you're talking to, you've got one who wants to do it one way, you've got one who wants to do it the other. So,
Great. And I think sometimes, especially in the industry, we talk about these things in silos. Digital somehow exists from human. And I think, Paul, your story is so perfect, because the reality is the customers live across all of these things, right? Yeah. And, quite frankly, if kind of you go back to how we think about our business, right? Ease, customer service, and price. Digital doesn't mean non-human, right? People will always want someone who's there for them in case something goes wrong. Just people want it in different ways and at different points of that journey. So it's a matter of, certain experiences might be more tailored than others to that. But I think it's, the reality is that I think the last stat I saw is something like 70 to 80% of life insurance purchase journeys, right, start online, right? Somebody goes to their computer, puts in the word life insurance, and, all hell breaks loose from that moment.
For better or worse, right?
So you have to, Laura, to use, know, like, and trust, you have to be able to kind of build that trust in multiple ways, including in the digital channel, no matter how you're selling, because that's where people's minds are. That's where people's attention is.
Yeah, and one of the participants, actually, Michael Myers, he had mentioned that, Haven does a lot of educational blogs to develop that trust in a digital space with new audiences. And he mentions that they're, simple, they're understanding. He wants to know if this is effective. So have you seen the effectiveness of these educational blogs? And was this something that you had been doing pre-pandemic, and has it ramped up since? What does that relationship look like?
Yes. So we, since our founding, have been doing a lot of blogging. We've always actually, since version 1 of our website, had a life insurance 101 on the website, just to help people get people up to speed. And I think all of those things, quite frankly, are markers along the way in a purchase journey, to build that trust with the customer. The reality is, we know when a customer comes to us, whether that's through Covr, a bank, or directly, one of the things that happens is that they'll shop around, they'll kind of quickly compare, they'll do that Google search, right? And so all of the additional touch points that we can create with our partners, with our content, with our brand, I think all of those help to kind of build that confidence that ultimately gets the person over the hurdle of, actually writing the check.
Yeah, Melbourne, from your perspective, how important is it in sort of the keeping with the sort of know, like, trust thing that Laura brought up? How important are partnerships in this structure? I mean, can I write better Google ad haiku than you, and that's enough to get a customer in the door?
Yeah, I think partnerships are absolutely paramount, and I think a lot of the startups are focused on direct to consumer, what the industry calls alternative distribution, but that's 5 to 6% of overall distribution today, right? And we're finding a lot of success there in D2C channels. and we're going to continue to grow that. But we really see the future of our business in many ways are through partnerships like we're having with Covr and other fintech partners, and also through the traditional distribution that we're growing significantly. What's interesting about life insurance, kind of getting back to another point that somebody else made, is everybody's trying to build platforms, right? And particularly in the fintech space, there are so many neobanks and challenger banks and apps and everyone else building platforms that are integrating and interacting with their product on a daily or multiple times a week basis. Consumers aren't interacting with their life insurance policy that frequently. And so we're finding a lot of success in partnering with what we really see in many ways is the digital agents of the future. So a lot of Covers and others of the world that are working with consumers and establishing platforms to offer a bundled approach of financial products and services that can integrate very uniquely in offering life insurance as a product on that platform. Our view is that as a life insurance company, it's going to be hard to establish that platform ourselves or with anybody within the life insurance space, but to integrate with partners to be able to distribute product in a very digital first way is one of the best ways we'll be able to expand life insurance coverage.
So you mentioned the future, and if we want to look ahead, digital insurance companies, they're driving change in the industry. Everything is moving a little bit faster than I think it would have been about 8 months ago. So I'm curious from each of your perspectives, what is the industry looking like in 5 years? And if 5 years is too far out, what's it potentially looking like in 5 months? Because God knows day to day is quite different in these times. So I guess, Mike, starting with you, where do you see the future going?
Yeah, I mean, look, we start with the premise that no financial plan is a valid plan without protection products. If you're not protecting, mortality and morbidity, you don't really have a full financial plan. You can run any model you want, and there's so many diversions to the end goal that are created when you don't have adequate protection. So, number one, we see this digital innovation and simplification, making it easier for anybody, whether it's the financial advisor or the customer themselves, to bring these needed protection products into a financial plan. That's number one. Number two, we see once the process of instant decision, digitally enabled commerce can happen for life insurance, term life insurance, it will happen for products that have more benefits and features than a simple 10, 20, and 30-year life insurance product. So it's great that we've honed this with the simple commodity type products. But the next thing that'll happen is there will be other benefits, other features of products that will be purchased through a digital first journey. And then third, we just see this just continued massive progression of customers buying life insurance from trusted relationships. Whether it goes as far as to the hairdresser, I'm not sure, but there are phenomenal partnerships that will be major channels where customers will look to that partner to be their protection source. So those are three things that we see from Covr's point of view.
Absolutely. Melbourne, if you want to jump in, what do you think?
Along the same lines, by far the biggest change is going to be the acceleration of digital solutions and how they apply not only to term, but to other products as well. I agree that the focus has been on term because it's been, quote unquote, the easiest product to try to figure out how to underwrite and distribute online, but we'll be, and others will be evolving, way past term. What's interesting about life insurance, particularly compared to P&C, is that P&C, the digitization of P&C and innovation that's taken place there is a decade plus, well beyond life insurance. And I think there's multiple reasons for that. That's probably a topic for another conversation. But life insurance companies, I think the industry knows the future isn't going to look like the past, but there's been no forcing mechanism for change. It's like consumers have been tapping or gently knocking on the door asking for this, and COVID came in and just like blew the doors open and said, like, now the future has to be different. And to survive and I think thrive in the future, you have to move to these digital solutions for consumers, and those who are positioned well to digitize and to be able to meet those needs are going to have the most success going forward.
Yeah, I'll just add that I look at it as really two things: radically simplified, driven by digital and technology, and then probably the even bigger change, which then will come out of that. I think to Mike's point, and where Covr I think is doing really interesting things, is then being able to embed that radically simplified process in really interesting partnerships, relationships, ecosystems that really then begin to change the game. And I think that's what's going to be required to truly unlock that next level of reaching more people, making sure people actually have the protection they need, and finally sort of covering off on that part of people's financial plan that is often just left to the last thing to do.
Yeah. So Laura, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I really trust the person who cuts my hair.
That's not my fault, Paul.
So Mike, just last question for you, Mike, before I think we're close to the top of the hour. We may have one or two questions, but is it going to be acquiring a customer? Is it going to become easier, or is it going to become harder over the next 5 years?
Yes.
Well said.
I think the competition for life insurance for that end customer is going to increase. So I think for any given distributor like Covr or carrier, customer acquisition is only going to get harder. I do think that will be counterbalanced by the fact that the journey will continue to get simpler. Awareness will continue to grow. Affordability will improve. So I think competition goes up because life insurance is now in the true omni-channel digital world. There'll be more competition continuing to come in, but the value proposition, the display of the benefit that these products offer is going to go up. So players are going to have to find their way through tougher competition, but access, I think, is going to be, improved. And I think the stronger players with the stronger value props are going to find more customers.
Yeah. Well, listen, Laura, I think any other questions or topics we should cover here? I think
there was, one actually just snuck in, and it kind of piggybacks nicely to what Mike had just said. The question comes in regards to what are some of the other factors that you'll see or you have been seeing consumers choose your products based on other than price? So other than price, what are some of the things that are rising to the top?
Yeah, I think if possible, I'd like to have either Haven or Bestow go first, and then I'll add just a bit from the Covr side.
Great.
Sure, I'm happy to go first. So I think the two big things that we see are ease of use, right? Which has been a big, obviously, focus of everyone here in terms of how do I make it easy? I mean, life insurance is what I call the sort of check the box kind of interaction. People they have it on their list and they want to be able to check it off. And so the easier you make it with technology fit into their lives, the better. The other thing I would say is they definitely look for reputation, right? And that's reputation across customer service. When something goes wrong or you need a beneficiary change, how are people going to perceive you? That's obviously a huge thing for us. And people want to know when you're sort of buying a policy that's going to pay several $100,000 down the line, that you're going to be there and that the company that's going to pay out is not going to disappoint. So that continues to be that sort of trust in the ability to pay continues to be an important factor.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think that the trust piece is absolutely critical. And there's a whole array of sources, I think, that consumers use, whether it's content, like we've talked about, reviews, partnerships, and so on. We find that through a lot of our partner channels that if there's already an existing financial relationship with one of our partners, and there's automatic trust kind of embedded in them partnering with us. And then just a huge other kind of metric that we follow with regards to conversion is speed of issuance. And we find actually over 80% of our policyholders bind in the same day. And so if you can actually contract that period of time for underwriting and allow for a consumer to be able to buy when they want to purchase rather than have to fall out of the funnel, go through a bunch of additional underwriting, and then have to try to drop back in, when you can convert them very quickly when they have that demand, conversion absolutely increases.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add. Just if there was a nuance to add to that speed and simplicity of the journey, we're finding how I pay for it and the options you give me. So from mail me a check to, ACH withdrawal from my checking account to credit card to Venmo based on the customer segment, that's got to be super easy right now. If you have to stop and go get your bank account, your routing number, it just adds friction to the process. So I think this, how do I pay and how easy is it to get my policy? So this is done. That last, 3 yards is of growing importance.
Well, excellent. Well, listen, thanks all of you for your time. Yaron, Melbourne, Mike, as usual, appreciate all your support and wish you all the well. Laura, any last bit of housekeeping? We'll put this up quickly on our podcast and our website, correct?
Yes, we will. Yeah, it'll be up soon. Yeah,
okay.
It'll be great. Follow, share, and as you heard today, partnerships change the game. So thank you all for coming and being guests today, and we look forward to the next conversation.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Take care.